Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our September meeting. We're going to start this meeting at 6:36. I believe that we have Mr. Hollenbeck on the line for invocation.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Should I give the invocation?
Would you please?
Okay. Heavenly Father, thank you for your blessings on the city of Canyon Lake and the surrounding communities. Even in this difficult times, we recognize the blessings on our country, on our state, and on our city. We thank you for our freedom and for our democracy. Be with our elected leaders tonight as they discuss issues important to our city. Give them your wisdom. We thank you and praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Tyler, would you like to lead us in the flag salute?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bonner?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo? Here. Councilmember Green?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Mayor Aaronkranz?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. City Attorney, do we have anything to report out of closed session?
Mr. Mayor, we have no items to report from closed session.
Thank you. And I'll look for a motion to approve the city council agenda.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have one ceremonial procedure here tonight. I think Mr. Commission is here. And he's going to apologize for the mayor goofing up.
No, not at all. Greetings, council, mayor, and staff. I'm here wanting to thank you very much for your support in the City Golf Championship. This year it was a great event. We've been partners now for 3 years in the City Championship. It's actually our 6th annual event. But each year we've seen it grow, and this year we had 77 golfers, and that up quite a bit from last year, especially considering the pandemic and the restrictions that we have to deal with. The nice thing about this event was that half the field came from outside Canyon Lake. While we have an avid golf community in Canyon Lake, and there's hundreds of golfers here, we were able to draw about 40 golfers from outside Canyon Lake. Some of them came as far as Capistrano, Downey, and even Valencia. So that was in large part due to the promotion that the POA helped us with, and email blasts and Facebook and videos and all the things that they did. Your donations helped cover some of our expenses as well as the POA support. And with that, we were able to give over $3,000 in prizes and trophies to 30% of the field, which is what makes this a real nice quality event. There were 2 championship winners. There was the men's winner, who is Robert Funk. He came in with a score of 142, which is even par for 2 rounds of golf. Pretty incredible. And then the ladies winner was a 16-year-old resident of Canyon Lake, Mia Golovich, and she won the ladies event with a 168 score. There were 6 other flights that competed with 4 or 5 winners in each flight. So we spread it out pretty well over the field. With the responses that I received from a number of players, I believe this event is slowly becoming a very popular and prominent event in Southwest Riverside County. And we have you and the POA to thank for that with your support. Now that we got that out of the way, we can get down to the real business that I'm here. Unfortunately, I don't have the trophy today, but I can still congratulate you for your participation in the Battle of the Cities, which, thanks to Anna and Tyler, they worked very hard bringing teams together. We had teams from Menifee, Wildemar, and Lake Elsinore. And Murrieta was signed up, but they had conflicts, so they couldn't participate. But it was still a fun event, and it was a 18-hole scramble. And fortunately, we, with Anna's husband and some of his friends, Canyon Lake was able to prevail and win the tournament. And for that, I can congratulate you. And I would love to be able to present you with our trophy, but we don't have it right now. But I will certainly get it to you. And thank you for your support and your participation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joe. And I can tell you, there was a slight misunderstanding. First, they told me I was to bring the trophy. Then they told me not to bring the trophy. And then again, Joe didn't get the information, so we may give him the opportunity to come back again and present us with the gold. But it didn't go unnoticed how the tournament was run. I mean, it went so smoothly, and it was quite a crowd, and Joe, you did a great job. So I know that you said you didn't deserve the credit, but as far as I'm concerned, you did a tremendous job. We had so many golfers there that the course ran out of golf carts. Mr. Kamasian had lent his golf cart to one of the foursomes to be used as well, so you went above and beyond what was necessary. So thanks again for handling it for us, Joe.
Well, my pleasure, and it wasn't me. I mean, we have a committee of Pat Kimball, our golf professional, and John Kegwin, and myself. We've been working on this tournament for the last 3 years, and so it's a joint effort by the three of us. So.
Well, I know that's what you told me on Saturday, but don't sell yourself short. You did a great job, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you. Well, I guess we're moving on to community reports, and apparently Darcy Burke is the first one up. Are you there, Darcy?
I am, Mayor Aaron. Thank you so much. Mayor, council, and staff, I have a few items to go over this evening. The first is that our lobby is open again, so masks are required. Social distancing protocol are in effect, and there are lines in the lobby, but the doors are open. And as a board, we're actually meeting again in person, and we've allowed for public participation with social distancing guidelines in effect. So if you are interested in attending a board meeting, we have one tomorrow at 4 p.m. You are welcome to do so. Last week, Metropolitan Water District increased their rates for next year, 2021 and 2022. 3% next year, starting in January, and an additional 4% the year after. I have not yet been able to confirm what Western's additional amount to that would be, but that basically means our wholesale costs for water have gone up over 7% over the next 2 years. So being that we buy almost 70% of our water from Metropolitan, it's something that we all need to be aware of. The more efficient we can be in our division, the less water we have to import, and the less that impacts our rate. And speaking of water usage, Division 1 is the least efficient out of all divisions at Elsinore Valley, and we have the most excessive water use. So when people keep their sprinklers on like it's July, or that they're just set and forgotten, it really makes an impact. Not just on your bills, but on those nutrients and contaminants that run off your landscape and then run into the lake. So the more we can reduce overwatering, the better overall health we'll have in our lake. But one of the reasons I think we have this issue is 40% of our entire division is on auto pay, which is great in a lot of ways, but it doesn't allow people, or people aren't paying attention to what their water usage is. So I'm really encouraging our residents to sign up for AquaHawk. It's a free app on our website. You can sign up there and on your phone. You can set your guidelines of when you want to be alerted, It will also let you know what your water budget is and alert you if you have leaks or any type of out of normal usage. So I think if people were just paying attention a little bit more, our excessive water usage would go down. I'm glad we're Division 1, number 1, but we don't need to be number 1 in least efficiency. I try to look at it as water is really just a resource, like money, and you're managing it, and we just want to be good stewards. Our website, speaking of how you access Aquahawk, we have a new temporary website. Our last website was severely broken and could no longer be repaired, and it was also not compliant with new ADA guidelines. So we have a temporary one where our new website's being built, but it's very efficient, it's easy to use, and I would encourage people to go on it in the future. It'll be even easier to be able to find information like rebates and how to pay your bill, but at least all the information's there and it's no longer broken. Our service moratorium shutoff is still in effect and will be until further notice. But if you are having trouble paying your water bill, please call customer service to set up payment plans now, because all that's happening is it's compounding. And I don't want to see anybody in a situation where it's just an unsurmountable task to try and get caught up. So if we can get ahead of that sooner than later, that would be great. And last but not least, on Saturday, October 7th, the Water District is hosting a virtual Flow into Fall community event. There'll be virtual tours, there will be demonstrations, there'll be information. It starts at 10 and ends at noon, and if you go to the website, you can log in and find a link on how to access it. All of that information will also be put on the website for future use, so if you're not able to attend, you are more than welcome to access it later. I'm happy to take any questions, Mayor, of you or the council.
Council have any questions?
Thank you for everything.
No? Thank you, Darcy.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You're certainly welcome. Thank you. Next, do we have President Poland on the line?
I'm here.
Good.
Ready to talk.
Good. Well, let's go. We're ready to
Okay,
hear.
thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to provide another update from the Canyon Lake Property Owners Association. I reviewed the agenda package this afternoon and was reminded that we share a common vision for the quality of life in our city. Your vision of the city of Canyon Lake is to be a city that provides a quality of life that makes Canyon Lake the premier place to live in Southern California. We certainly agree and go farther and say that through stability and collaborative leadership and management, we aspire to become one united, sought-after, restored-style community for permanent residents that respects and meets the expectations of a diverse membership through enhanced amenities and increased property values. One of the many places that our efforts intersect as it relates to our members, our property owners, your constituents, relates to our built environment. Yours, of course, is larger than ours. We understand that. It includes areas outside of our boundaries and our jurisdiction. And we understand that those areas may increase substantially going forward. And that's good news to me. Among other things, we depend on you for all aspects of public safety and appreciate your focused efforts in that regard. Our articles of incorporation, bylaws, and rules define a community that has chosen to live in a more regulated environment related to how we build, how we maintain our properties, and how we provide our amenities. To protect the appearance, view lines, and property values, we have a set of CC&Rs. These are rules, limitations, and requirements that were set in place over 50 years ago and represent the promise about how we look and how we will behave. This is a promise that makes to everyone that comes and buys inside of our boundaries. These go well beyond what is required in city ordinances and building codes and involve size, shape, location of buildings, avoiding easements, honoring setbacks, how HVAC systems and propane tanks can be located, and where miscellaneous structures are permitted and what use they're permitted. In the spirit of a common vision for quality of life and meeting the expectations of our diverse membership, we together should strive to do all we can do to make it easy for our community to understand and follow the networks of requirements for building, remodeling, and maintaining our built environment. We would like to continue to talk about and establish a memorandum of understanding between our Planning and Compliance Department and your Building and Safety Department that assures our members, staffs, and our members and staffs, your constituents and staff understand the requirements of both that we have, and avoids construction that's permissible under city codes and ordinances but violates our CCNRs. It's a bit of a pain for folks to have to deal with 2 permits, but believe me, it's much easier for them to deal with that than to have it discovered that they had built something under a city building permit, not realizing they had to get permission from Planning and Compliance, and then they have to either remodel, tear it out, or redo it, or in some really extreme cases, sell their property. As you know, such MOUs are not binding, but once executed formally, they provide a foundation for our joint expectations. Something through its consistent application will simplify the process in the minds of our constituents, improve their quality of life, and protect our property values. I hope we can gain your support for continuing that conversation. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Chris. Council have any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you so much, Chris. Next, we have a report from the Chamber of Commerce. Jeannie, are you on the line? Jeannie Odell? Okay, then I guess we're going to skip that for now. We're going to move on to a public safety update. Sheriff is here. Thank you. Good.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, and city staff. Glad to see everybody's healthy and doing well. Looks like it. I have 2 months worth of stats to give you. It's going to be for the months of August and September. During the month of August, deputies with Canyon Lake generated or responded to 464 calls for service, which is down 136 calls from July, which was 600. During the month of August, there were 11 Part 1 crimes reported in the city of Canyon Lake. And a 3-month comparison, there were no homicides, no rapes, no robberies. There were 3 aggravated assaults, which is down 1. 2 burglaries, which is up 2. Thefts of 6, which was up 2. No motor vehicle thefts, so that's down 2. And then no arsons. Deputies also made 2 public intoxication arrests, wrote 12 traffic parking citations, made 8 DUI arrests, took 6 traffic collision reports, and overall made 14 arrests in the city of Canyon Lake. That covers August. September, deputies generated or responded to 429 calls for service, which is down 35 from month of August. There were 9 Part 1 crimes reported in the city of Canyon Lake. No homicides, no rapes, no robberies. There were 2 aggravated assaults, which is down 1. 2 burglaries. 3 thefts, which is down 3. 2 motor vehicle thefts. And 0 arsons. Department made 2 public intoxication arrests, wrote 14 traffic citations, made 3 DUI arrests, and took 2 traffic collision reports. Overall, 12 arrests were made in the city of Canyon Lake. So that covers those 2 months. Any questions? Concerns?
Council have any questions?
I know we do have a crime discussion for later on in the presentation. Will you be
Yep, I'll
around
be
to
here.
participate in that?
Definitely.
Okay. Because I think maybe that's where we'll get into some of this more extensively. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'll be here to answer questions.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Code enforcement, Gina, I see you're here.
Mayor? Over here. I'm sorry, I believe we have fire on the line, if that's okay. I believe we have Battalion Chief Scott Weatherholtz. Are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and staff. I'm filling in this evening for Chief Barnett for the stats of September for the City of Canyon Lake. You chief from the Quill Valley area. That concludes for the jurisdiction calls. And then I'll go by the unit activity for Engine 60 and what they did for the month. Excuse me 1 second. For the engine company, out of 60, they ran a total of 80 calls, majority of those being medical aids. A couple with outside of the city limits. Within Lake Elsinore, they ran 11 calls. Assisted in Menifee City, 11 calls, and also Paris, the county areas they assisted, 24 calls. Out of all those calls, there was no surf reports that the council would have received, and no calls that were over 10 minutes. And I'm here to answer any questions if possible. Just let me know.
Excuse me, any questions? I'm sorry for overlooking you. I thought you were not on the line. My error. But the council have any questions?
I do not.
No? Okay. Well, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll try it again. Gina, our senior code enforcement officer.
Thank you, Mayor Aaron Kranz and council members and staff. First, I wanted to say that we really appreciate all the support that we get from everybody every day. Things have been a little bit crazy, but we're getting through it and managing to stay on top of everything. So you'll notice there's a little bit of a decrease in the field portion as far as BLM land goes. We don't have as much coverage on the weekends simply because we've had staff that's been out ill and everybody's trying to take extra care and precaution to not be here when they're not feeling well. So that may be a reason for the decrease in the numbers on the BLM land. However, we still have the rangers and fire prevention out there with performing those, that being there to prevent anything from moving beyond what we should be able to handle. Most of our fire inspections have been completed and they're starting to wind down, so you'll see that number should be less and less, and I will let you know once they've all been completed so that you guys know that our commercial areas are complete and it's done for the year. And rental inspections, the numbers don't look so great looking at this with the number that's coming in now, but we're actually powering through them and the inspections are being scheduled and the registrations are coming in. So we are on top of it. Last month we did 21 inspections and this week it feels like we've already done 21 inspections in 3 days. So we're going, they're coming in, and the program is really off the ground and moving.
Gina, can I ask you about that?
Yeah.
There's been some questions online about the final notice and what exactly the residential rental inspections entail. Can you just kind of briefly go over about approximately how long they last and what exactly you're looking at?
Okay, so the residential rental inspection program is all designed around what the state of California has determined and adopted into the Health and Safety Code 17920.3 as substandard housing conditions. We aren't looking for anything beyond those substandard housing conditions. We're looking for state mandated, it must meet these requirements. We don't report anything outside of that, and we give a notice if it doesn't meet that standard. We're usually in and out depending upon the size of the property and the number of levels, because Canyon Lake really varies here. So I would say no inspection has taken us over 30 minutes, not even a home that's large with violations. And we're working with everyone. If it's not an immediate hazard, we're very flexible on the repair time and the repair date because we do understand that these things are costly and people do need to have time to get the appropriate number of bids. One thing with residential rental properties I'd just like to remind people is California state licensed contractors have to perform the work. The owner, builder, and handyman doesn't apply in this arena because you don't live in it. So if you don't reside in the property, or you haven't resided in the property, or don't intend to reside in the property, it has to be a California state licensed contractor. If the home has had mold issues, it requires a state certified mold testing company and a state certified mold remediation company. That is because these things are health hazards and they've already been deemed so by the state. We're not looking for cleanliness. We're looking for the meat of a home that make it safe. So typically we're there about 15 minutes, but what I found through this program is sometimes it's also a person doing an inspection that can provide them with a lot of information and answer several questions that they have. So they could go longer than the 15 minutes that would normally be required. We're there to serve and help with any problem that comes up, not just do this inspection. So to us, it's a public contact and hopefully a positive one.
So is that kind of like carbon monoxide detectors, et cetera?
Yes, that is probably the number one reason that the homes aren't passing inspection initially. But that's because most people say, well, we don't have any gas in our house that would require a carbon monoxide detector. The California Building Code does not make an exception for that. So, and that is because in talking with the insurance side of the state bureaus and the building side, people can go out and purchase a heater that would produce carbon monoxide. And because our vehicles are almost always now equipped with remote start, if one is triggered in the garage, the fumes can come in the house. So at this time, there's no exemption for the requirement of a carbon monoxide detector.
Are you meeting with any resistance from any of the homeowners for this inspection?
Not as much as I would have anticipated. I think it's a lot lower, way lower than I thought. And I think once they were out there and were starting the inspection and they realized, oh, this isn't bad at all, then it immediately goes from what was a little bit uncomfortable to very comfortable, and question after question pertaining to the inspections and other things.
So you say the program is successful at this time then?
I definitely would. I definitely would. And I think that we've had enough properties that had some pretty good remediation to be done that they're thankful to.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Have you gotten feedback from renters?
I've gotten through the property management companies, that's where we seem to run into most of the tenants that are uncomfortable with it. But once I think they make contact with city staff and they understand what we're trying to accomplish and how the program is actually designed to work and meet state requirements, which, by the way, also meet federal fair housing requirements, I think that they have a better understanding. So what could be a little bit, feeling abrasive about us coming into the home turns into a positive contact.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Certainly.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
One is on the
Your mic,
fire prevention.
is your mic on?
Sorry. Mask, got to turn the mic on, that's better. On the fire prevention inspections, how many second notices have been issued for a re-inspect on a percentage basis? It doesn't have to be exact.
I would probably say 33%, only because a lot of the businesses have been here a long time, and they might have a fire inspection. They might have a fire extinguisher, but it's not mounted on the wall between 3 and 5 feet. Where they're also failing, because we have a lot of Class B office space, is storage, because you're not allowed to store things all the way up to the ceiling, and they just don't realize that. So those things are very quickly remedied.
Good.
Yeah.
And on our restaurants, what about the hoods and their extinguishing systems and their exiting? Those all seem to be up to par?
They are all, so far, they've all been tested within the 5-year for the fire alarm maintenance to the system, and their hoods are serviced every 6 months.
Perfect.
So those are actually going very well, and they're very clean.
Okay, here's one that was given to me by one of our residents who happens to be a commercial vehicle semi-truck cleaner. And he has commercial accounts. And he has a required license by the state of California it's called some kind of a water collection. Anybody that does mobile cleaning must have that license, and they must catch the water, as this gentleman does, from the runoff and either recycle it or repurpose it. It can't go in the drains. And are we enforcing that? Because he felt that there's a lot of mobile detailers that are in the lake that are discharging their water down the curb and into the drains. And I just wondered if that's something we're catching or not.
So whenever we get an auto detailer in the commercial center, or in the commercial centers, because we have 3, we don't get a whole lot of calls for service for the mobile detailers inside the gates at somebody's residence. The one thing that I would like to explain is that our MS4 permit requires that the water doesn't meet the drain. So if they're far enough away, they use very little water, for example, in the center. The ground will get wet, but in the heat and with the sun, it dissipates. It doesn't have any place to run off. So in the wintertime, if it were raining, we would definitely say, sorry, you have to put down the absorbent mats or the collection, and then they always are equipped with a wet vac to suck it up. But in the summertime, with the heat that we have and the biodegradable soaps being used, those are, they dissipate from the sun before any water would come that could wash it into the storm drain or the sewer. So the answer is yes, we're really concerned from October through May, which is the rainy season. I didn't pick that. The state picked that. But in the summertime, we can be more relaxed about it because there's not enough water. It's not running off and running down and into the storm drain.
Okay. And are we catching those detailers on their business licenses?
Absolutely, 100%.
Good job.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Larry, if I may, just to further your statement, if I'm not mistaken, isn't the whole point to repurpose the water? It's not necessarily the drainage part of it. I mean, yes, that's a concern too, but it's also recycling water from runoff.
Yeah, and these guys actually had dammed up their area and then had a pump as the water was discharged in the area, and then they had tanks on board their equipment that captured all that water, and off it went. It did not end up in any part other than what they had contained. Very similar to the detail place here in the center. If you look, they they got a basin around the entire thing, and that water never hits the ground. So they're not using that, but they are containing it. So
Right.
his concern is that he's diligent about doing it. He just wanted to make sure, and I said I'd ask. So
Yeah.
there we go, and I'm glad.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And good job. Tell you and your crew, good job.
Thank you, Gina. Moving on to public comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Any person wishing to address the city council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the city, whether or not it appears on this agenda, is asked to submit their comment electronically by sending an email to publiccomment@canyonlakeca.gov. Please note that I will be accepting email comments during this meeting in real time. If you're commenting on an item on the consent calendar or on items not on the agenda, I will read the emailed submissions into the record during the public comments portion of the agenda. If you're commenting on a business item or public hearing, I will read the emailed submissions into the record at the time the particular item is scheduled on the agenda. During this period of social distancing, electronically submitted comments should be no more than 250 words and include the person's name and agenda item number. I do have 3 comments. One of the comments is specifically on item 10, so we'll listen to that comment at that time. Our first comment says, "Hello, my family has been living in Canyon Lake for more than 20 years. We moved here when I was 6 years old. I grew up running around the lake and enjoying many of the activities and programs offered, such as Little League, fishing, boating, tennis, etc. Some of the best friendships that I cherish today are the ones that were fostered here in Canyon Lake. Unfortunately, I am concerned that my childhood experience in Canyon Lake will not be the same for the next generation of children. Over the past few years, there has been a notable rise in aggressive rhetoric, political intolerance, and white supremacy throughout the community. I say this having lived experience in South Africa, the most unequal and racist country in the world. To provide a few examples, myself and members of my family have been assailed with racial and homophobic slurs walking down the street on multiple occasions. In addition, people that I know have been verbally and physically harassed for progressive political views. These instances are not necessarily the case of a few bad apples, but are rather a recognizable feature of the community itself. As a non-white person whose family has been part of this community for more than 20 years, I can say with certainty that I do not feel comfortable raising children here. I am not alone in this sentiment, as several other young couples and families have expressed similar views. I want Canyon Lake to be a safe and welcoming community and to be a place to belong. As the Canyon Lake Chamber of Commerce writes, but unfortunately it has failed to live up to those expectations in recent years. I firmly believe that if Canyon Lake wants to be a little bit of paradise for years to come, then there needs to be a serious conversation about how to address the issues of aggressive rhetoric, political intolerance, and white supremacy. I call on the city council members to draft a statement acknowledging the issues of aggressive rhetoric, political intolerance, and white supremacy and how they plan on addressing them. Thank you." Our next comment is by Andrew Foster, and it says, "Dear City Council, my name is Andrew Foster, and please stand with me and the people of this city to defend equality under our Constitution and reject State Measure 16 in the November election. State Measure 16 would amend our state constitution and allow the state government to discriminate between Californians based on race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. Californians overwhelmingly reject State Measure 16. A poll of 1,704 California residents released on September 16th by the Public Policy Institute of California showed voters opposed to State Measure 16 by huge margins. 80% of voters have decided how to vote, and 60% of voters who have decided are opposed to State Measure 16. Californians in every area of the state reject State Measure 16. The poll shows 53% of Los Angeles and 75% of Inland Empire voters who have decided how to vote are opposed to State Measure 16. Elected officials, please join us in defending California's unity and equality by opposing State Measure 16. Don't divide us. Don't amend our Constitution to allow the state government to discriminate between Californians based on race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. Sincerely, Andrew Foster."
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
As we all know, we do not respond to public comments, so we'll move on to the consent calendar.
All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine matters, status reports, or documents covering previous city council action. The items listed on the consent calendar may be enacted in one motion. With the concurrence of the city council, a council member may request that an item be removed for further discussion.
Council have any items that they would like to have pulled? No. Then I'll entertain a motion and a second to...
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This requires a roll call vote.
Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaronkranz?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, I guess we're moving on to public hearing. (7:16) is going to start the public hearing. This is a landscape ordinance. And
Jim Morrissey, are you on the line?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I am. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. This is a an amendment to the city's municipal code that's going to replace the existing landscape provisions that were previously mandated by the state. The state has upgraded them and expanded them, and staff felt that this was sort of a pattern and thought it was appropriate, rather than retyping as we did approximately 10 years ago with the previous one, that we simply adopted by reference, because any subsequent changes made by the state would automatically be incorporated. The purpose of the ordinance, when it was originally adopted, I think in 2009, was to combat drought conditions that had existed, and the state has seen fit to change that criteria a bit and make things a little bit more specific. The general requirements are the same. The types of documentation to be submitted are the same. But one of the notable changes was attached as part of your staff report, relate to a compliance procedure that applicants can do in lieu of the more voluminous requirements. And those that compliance procedure that they call prescriptive compliance option, in essence, allows someone to note the various items in the law and the fact that they would abide by them and go ahead and sign off on them. So they're a little bit easier to address. They've also inserted into the law a 500 square foot provision, and we've actually had a landscape plan that was submitted that was less than that. They didn't want much landscaping, and they verified it on the plan, so they were not would not be subject to these particular requirements. The recommendation to the council this evening is that you find the proposed ordinance and amendment to the code exempt under the sections listed in the staff report of the California Environmental Quality Act, and that you approve and introduce the first reading of the ordinance as referenced also in the staff report. I just wanted to make one mention too. Anytime staff has the environmental action listed first, it is always a requirement to go ahead and act on that environmental component prior to acting on whatever the subsequent item is, be it an ordinance or a development project. That finding has to be made first, so that the subsequent action, when it's taken, reflects the fact that the environmental issues or components of the evaluation have been evaluated. If that concludes the staff report, if there's any questions, be happy to try and respond.
Questions by the council?
I don't have any.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any proponents here. Okay. Or opponents? Well, we have to vote on this first. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I did just... Go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I did just want to bring one thing to the council's attention. Because we're adopting this by reference, it will be a different procedure than you're used to with most other ordinances. You will not see this on your consent calendar. You're going to see it as another public hearing at the next month's meeting. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It doesn't really affect what action you're taking now, but I just wanted to sort of get that out there. So
on the second reading?
the second reading is going to be a public hearing as well, not going to be on consent.
Okay, thank you.
It can't be under consent?
No, the government code requires that the second reading will also be a public hearing on this.
So at this point, we need a motion and a second to approve the environmental determination
Mayor, I'm sorry, if I can have you close the public hearing first?
and then reopen it.
No, we're going to close the public hearing, and then you've got discussion by council and then action by council.
Okay, then we're going to close this public hearing at 7:21. Now I have to entertain a motion to improve the environmental determination for us.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion and a second, and we need a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Green and a second by Councilmember Bonner to approve the environmental determination recommended by staff. Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron-Krantz?
Aye,
Motion carried to approve the environmental determination.
thank you. We still have to approve the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 202, correct?
Yes. We can have a motion and second for the approval of the introduction.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Once again, this requires a roll call vote.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Smith and a second by Councilmember Bonner to approve the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 202. Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron-Krantz?
Aye,
Motion carried to approve the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 202, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Canyon Lake, California, amending Chapter 15.04 of the Canyon Lake Municipal Code, adopting by reference the State of California Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance contained in the California Code of Regulations, Title 23, Waters, Division 2, Department of Water Resources, Chapter 2.7, Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance, Sections 490, and any amendments thereto.
thank you. Moving on to business items.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes, please.
I would like to make a motion that we take up announcements before business items.
Did I miss something?
Do we need to second that?
I do need a second.
I'll second that. He wants,
I want to take up announcements, which is discussion on the next regular meeting for November before we go into our business items. I have a second on the floor.
That's fine. Let's go ahead.
And the second was by Councilmember Green?
yes.
Thank you.
I think you need a roll call vote, or, right, Mr. City Attorney?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Bonner?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Councilmember Smith made a motion, and we have a second by Councilmember Green to move up the announcements portion of the agenda. He would like to discuss that now.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron-Krantz?
Aye,
Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As most of you know, COVID-19 has impacted us all, and we have a city council meeting coming up next month that is going to be, might I say, very controversial in regards to some of the discussions that we're going to have. I would like the support of our council to allow the chamber doors to be open for this discussion to take place at the upcoming city council meeting. Whether that means we have to make the proper arrangements to handle more people, a different location for the meeting, whatever it might be. But due to the fact that we are going to be taking up dispensary marijuana in this community, I don't think we should be doing such behind closed doors.
I certainly have no objection as long as the county and the state allows us to do this. Mr. City Manager, do you have any comment on this?
I do, thank you. I had a phone discussion with Councilman Smith yesterday where he brought this topic up, and so I had a feeling it might come up at the meeting tonight. I jotted down a few thoughts. I meant for them to be just a couple bullet points, but as I kept writing, it just kind of kept going and going and going. So I'll try to be as brief as possible here. I'd like to start by setting the stage for the discussion a little bit by pointing out where we stand at the moment. I know that we are all sick and tired of COVID-19 and all of the restrictions that have come along with it. I know that we're frustrated. I understand there exists a wide range of opinions and feelings about the nature and the seriousness of COVID-19 and how government entities at all levels have addressed the situation. And while there is disagreement on how serious COVID-19 really is, whether or not suggested precautions are actually effective, how far government should be allowed to go in terms of restricting individual liberties during a declared emergency, as a local government entity, we are not here to answer any of those questions. As a city government, regardless of how we may feel as individuals, we have certain obligations. Obligations related to public health and safety, obligations to follow state mandates. Whatever our feelings are on the matter, the fact remains that we're in the middle of a global pandemic that is not showing any signs of slowing down. In fact, quite the opposite, I'm afraid. As of yesterday, nearly half of the states in the country, 24 states to be exact, are seeing case numbers spike. Texas and California are leading the way in new COVID-19 cases. Hospitalizations are once again on the rise. California is third in the country in number of deaths. Here in Canyon Lake, we have had 115 confirmed cases and 2 deaths. There was a Press Enterprise article yesterday. The headline is, Riverside County could slide back into more restrictive purple coronavirus tier. It says, rising coronavirus case rates threaten to pull Riverside County back into purple tier. Dr. Kaiser, the county's public health officer, was quoted, "There is no good way to say it, but both our positivity rate and our case rates are now rising." We see a similar phenomenon in San Bernardino County, so we do not believe this is a local artifact of our own numbers. The county's adjusted case rate is currently entering the purple tier again. So how should these facts serve to inform the city's decision regarding when and how to reopen city facilities to the public? Clearly, we have a responsibility to protect the health and safety of those who live and work in the community, including city staff. Clearly, we have a legal obligation to abide by state emergency orders and public health regulations. Staff reached out this morning to our neighboring cities in southwest Riverside County regarding their current procedures for public participation in city council meetings. The cities of Menifee, Murrieta, Wildomar, Paris, and Temecula are all not allowing the public to attend city council meetings in person. These cities have made the meetings available to the public virtually and indicated that they do not have a timeline for reopening meetings for in-person public participation at this time. The city of Lake Elsinore is the only city in the region that has opened city council meetings to the public under the stipulation that masks are worn and social distancing is observed. While as a rule the city of Murrieta's meetings are closed to the public, they have made an exception for certain special meetings of the city council. Due to the volume of residents who wish to participate in these meetings, Murrieta has allowed in-person public participation with strict guidelines. One resident is allowed to enter the council chambers at a time. Social distancing is enforced while in line to enter the council chambers to speak. Before being allowed to enter, temperatures are taken, questions are asked about COVID symptoms they may have, and masks are required to be worn at all times. Once the person is done speaking, they are directed to leave through a separate door in order to prevent cross-contamination. I think a few things are generally understood. We have a current state emergency order prohibiting gatherings. The state has threatened the loss of CARES Act funding should cities fail to comply. Fortunately, with technology being what it is today, there are legitimate alternative methods for the public to engage with city government on any and every issue. No one can honestly claim to not have been afforded the opportunity to observe a city council meeting or to give input on any given issue. Ideally, of course, we would like to be able to have the public physically in the room during council meetings, but these are not ideal times. We are in an unprecedented time of global pandemic, of declared state emergency, of declared local emergency right here in the city of Canyon Lake. We all have our personal opinions on COVID-19, but as a local government entity, we have an obligation to follow state emergency regulations. We have an obligation to place public health and safety above our personal feelings, often above what we would like to be able to do, and certainly above politics. Lastly, as the city manager, And currently, as Director of Emergency Services during a declared local emergency, it is my responsibility to ensure the ability of this government to function. To do that, I must protect the health and safety of city staff. We are unique in that we have an incredibly small staff. We need to be much more careful than any of our neighboring cities because we simply cannot afford to lose staff. Unlike larger cities, we don't have big departments where there are plenty of staff members who can step in and fill a position if someone is out for an extended period of time. Some cities have divided their staff into shifts. Shift A works Monday and Tuesday, Shift B works Wednesday and Thursday, and if someone gets sick on Shift 1, then Shift B is available to fill in. We just don't have those sorts of luxuries here in Canyon Lake. If even one or two of our staff members go down with COVID and are out of commission for an extended period of time, our operations will grind to a halt. And during a time when the city is implementing numerous programs that are critical in terms of quality of life and long-term financial stability of the city. City administrative staff had a detailed discussion yesterday on the possibility of reopening city facilities. I don't usually do this, but I invite you to ask them individually how they feel on this topic. But your city manager is reporting to you that your staff want to be protected. They want to be able to come to work every day as they have all along throughout this pandemic and do their best to continue serving the residents of Canyon Lake. That's a long way of saying I recommend against it.
Jeremy, just for my curiosity, why did you want to jump it up before the business items?
Because we got to have a discussion on it if we want to make it happen for the next council meeting as far as opening the chambers. Mr. Mayor, if I may. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I do appreciate the input on it. The last 48 hours have been very interesting. Before this came to me by multiple residents in the community, I did my homework. I reached out to over 11 cities and talked to over 8 city council members and 3 mayors throughout our region. Currently, as it stands, Lake Elsinore is fully open to the public. Norco is fully open to the public. Eastville is fully open to the public. Hemet is open to the public as well, allowing 10 members to come in. Beaumont is fully open to the public, Harupa Valley, Calamasa, and the list goes on. Cities have been operating with social distancing and masks for over 4 months, and I just found this out in the last 48 hours. We have to make an extremely serious decision in the next 30 to 45 days in regards to a very hot topic in this community. Probably one of the most divided topics that at least I've been a part of or seen in this community. So I'm urging the council to support me in allowing the community to participate in this discussion so that we can see eye to eye how the folks feel about this. I've spoke to a few of my colleagues in other positions in the community, and the support is overwhelming on how important a particular subject that we're taking up next month is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council, would you like to discuss this any further?
I have some comments. I believe that what Councilmember Smith is referring to is potentially a discussion on marijuana dispensaries.
Can you use your microphone?
Is it not on? I'm sorry. Oh no, it was on. I'm just not loud enough. And I do agree with Councilmember Smith. I don't think that this is one of those television conversations. However, you know, city staff, health and safety is very important to me as well. Is there a potential that we delay this conversation, being that it is one that is very important? Is there any reason that we have to move it forward next month if it can't be in person?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. So a little history on the topic. We first started discussing the potential of revisiting our ordinance that currently prohibits all commercial cannabis uses in the city in the fall of last year. You may recall we had a resident come to a city council meeting and step up to the podium and ask us to reconsider it, at which time the mayor appointed an ad hoc committee to look into the topic. At that time, we had discussions with HDL, who is our existing sales tax consultant and does an awful lot of work in cannabis. throughout the country to guide us on what appropriate steps would be. We conducted a public opinion survey on the topic, and we were preparing to bring the topic to a council meeting, I believe it was in April, but then COVID hit in March. And the decision was made at that time that we would pump the brakes on the topic for the reason that Councilmember Smith and Mayor Pro Tem Castillo are mentioning, that this is an issue that is likely to be quite controversial, and one that we anticipate a large number of people in the community would be interested in expressing thoughts and opinions on. And so we reached out to those who had already expressed an interest in applying for this use, two of which had entered into agreements with the city whereby they deposited funds with us that the city then used to pay for HDL services and the pole, so that those costs were not a burden on the city's general fund. And we said, look, we've got this COVID issue. We want to hold off until we're past this, and then we'll resume. Well, nobody had any idea at that time that 6 months later, here we are. We thought, okay, this is going to be a matter of weeks, not of months. And so, as this has dragged on, COVID that is, the applicants who are interested have applied increasing pressure on the council to move on it. And so we were looking at the calendar and thinking, my gosh, we probably don't want to bring this in December. That's largely ceremonial, and it's no one wants to discuss something so controversial during the holidays. We probably we didn't want to put it off until next year, so we thought November is probably the time that makes sense. That being said, if it's the wish of the council to hold off until such time that it's safe to allow members of the public into the chambers, it's certainly your purview to do so. You have every right to do so. There's no obligation for the council to ever take up this topic. So you can certainly pick a time of your choosing to do so.
Excuse me. The urgency of this ordinance really isn't an emergency ordinance.
Correct.
It's a discussion and a movement, whether it's yes, no, and community involvement.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe the sensitivity of it, because if we move into purple, which it looks like our numbers are going, we may have bigger things to be considering because of the closures that's being projected. And so I'm thinking maybe this topic could be moved to a time frame that is conducive to audience and to feedback and to a dialogue between our constituents and the citizens, and find out where we are and where we want to go. And I think just based on circumstances and council members' efforts and other efforts that are coming in through different avenues to us, I think it's a very important topic, and I think it deserves input. And I think it would be very difficult for, even as technology has allowed, for us to actually get everybody's comment, because there's more people comfortable sitting here or listening or whatever, and I believe that would help with the discussion and with the decision that we'll have to make, or the council will have to make, that is in place. That's just my 2 cents.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Assuming we went forward with the vote on dispensary, the purpose would be for sales tax revenue. During COVID, has the city of Canyon Lake been hit hard on sales tax revenue? Because I know that a big portion of our revenue is not from sales taxes. Can you kind of talk about that?
This is perhaps the only conceivable circumstance under which we're thankful that we don't have much sales tax to begin with.
And council members, I would just urge us to stick to the agendized topic. I know that there's probably a desire to get into the merits of the proposal that apparently was scheduled for the next meeting, but right now you have on your agenda discussing the next regular meeting. I think it's perfectly reasonable to discuss what is scheduled at that next meeting or what the rules of that next meeting are. But I think if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of this proposal, I think it'd probably be better to wait.
I
Or
don't-
ask the city manager after the meeting. Or
I think my question is there an urgency to have this discussion?
Very good, very good.
In November?
Not from a sales tax perspective. The one thing, and maybe this is something I'd like to get some feedback from the city attorney on. We entered into credit and reimbursement agreements with two interested parties, by which each party deposited $15,000 with the city, with the idea that future applicants would also deposit that same amount. And then, all the costs the city would incur processing, going through this process would be drawn from that. And at the end, whatever was left over would be evenly reimbursed to those who had applied. It's not dissimilar to a real estate project that's coming to the city where an applicant deposits money with the city and we draw from that money, and there's no guarantee of the outcome of that. I guess my only question, and again, maybe for the city attorney, is are there any concerns that at some point those who have deposited money, are there any legal liabilities for us there?
Well, I think it'd be better if I gave my strict legal counsel to you outside a public meeting. That being said, that the agreements were drafted with the express statement that it didn't bind the city to act in any particular way or act at all.
Correct.
And so, no, I wouldn't say there's any urgency, and obviously there's an overriding consideration, which is the safety of the public and their ability to participate.
Fantastic. Then I don't see any urgency, no.
Well, then I would say my position would be in agreement with Councilmember Smith that it is too important to do via television. And then if the group is going to say no, then I think we move that topic.
Could you repeat that? I'm not sure I understood what you said.
Sorry, I'll be a little louder. My position would be in agreement with Councilmember Smith that it is too important a discussion to have the public not participate in person. And so if there is no potential or possibility that we are going to have public participation in person, then the topic should be tabled until we can.
So I'm not sure I understand.
I'll clear it up. You go ahead.
I believe it's the reason, we'll defer the discussion on this topic until such time we can have it in an open forum that we have input from the audience. And I'm not saying it's from now to infinity, because we'll have to address that just based on what we have in front of us right now, two applicants. But I think give us some time to work through this. And if the situation doesn't change or it gets worse, then we'll have to address that at that time.
Just because, Mr. Mayor, if I may, just because the city attorney has looked at me multiple times, I'm going to clear the air and make sure that we continue to talk about the regular announcement for the next city council meeting and what could possibly be discussed at that next city council meeting. So my proposal obviously is that, and again, I'm so hesitant to say this because the safety of our staff is so important, but as an elected official, I don't think it's right for us to govern behind closed doors on such a controversial topic. So my recommendation would be this to this council, if you choose to take it up or not, and that is we open the doors for the next city council meeting if a certain topic is going to be discussed in that meeting. If not, then obviously there's no need to open up the doors because there's no controversial topics at that point. Does that make sense, Mr. Mayor?
Well, it does sort of, and I understood what you were saying, Casey. I wasn't sure which side you were leaning towards. And certainly your presentation was quite thorough, and I certainly understand that. As I said when you first brought this up, it was okay with me, but after hearing, what's been going on here, I don't know if there's an urgency to talk about that certain subject. Also, with the way conditions are right now, we may not be allowed to do that. It may not be our choice as to what we can do. And we have another situation which perhaps there's going to be some new council members. I don't know why we couldn't have it in December. It's not that much of a ceremonial. We've canceled our great State of the City presentation. I would like to err on the side of safety, of course. And obviously, we can't afford to lose any of our employees or anyone else. I don't know, is this something we vote on this time, or we just table it?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure it needs a vote. Let me clarify what I think I'm hearing in terms of a consensus. It seems that I've heard a majority of the council suggest that it might be better to hold off on this topic until such time that we can safely open the council chambers for members of the public to be here in person, in which case we would not agendize this topic for the next meeting.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I am against it. It could be 6 months before we talk about this issue.
That's right.
And we've got to get to the bottom of this issue, and we've been talking about it for several months.
You're right.
And it's time to make a decision. And I'm against delaying this any longer. And I'm only going to be on one city council meeting in November, and then I'll be history. But I believe it's time to address this issue and quit delaying it, and it could be 6 months or more.
Well, what's the wishes of the council or our city manager?
Mr. City Attorney, would a vote be appropriate in this situation?
Well, the city manager controls what goes on the agenda, and he just saw the conversation that occurred here, and he's also in charge of setting up the health and safety of the public coming into the meeting. So I think he's heard what the council has said. If you want to direct him to do something, you can, of course, make a motion to do that, but I don't think it's required that you do so, other than announce that the next meeting will be on November 4th, 2020 at 5 p.m. for closed session.
Well, this situation hasn't gotten any easier, and I certainly applaud what you've been doing, Councilmember Smith, in regards to bringing this forward.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there's a lot to be said with what Councilmember Bonner has said. I've always been a believer that when a council's been part of something, to see it through. And I understand exactly what you're saying, and I feel the same way when it comes to discussion of public safety, that this council's done some things that haven't been done in the last couple of years. For me, this has been going on longer than I probably have been. This discussion has been going on for years and years. And, if we wanted to deal with it and address it and move forward, I think that would be very honorable of this council. I just want this council to know that as far as myself, I cannot be part of a conversation behind closed doors of that magnitude without us allowing people from the public. I'm the only one here who has gone door to door the last 2 weeks talking to residents on this topic. And I got to be honest with you, this is a very serious conversation. So much so that I'm dead on point here that this has to be had in public, because there's too many people that want to have this conversation and look at us in the eyes on how important it means to their families, or how the complete opposite. So I'm urging this council that if we are going to make the decision to have a certain meeting next month, that we give direction to staff to prepare to have that meeting in open like Lake Elsinore has done and all the other cities that I have mentioned.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more that it's a very hot subject and a hot topic. And whether it has to be done next month or not, I'm not sure that that's particular urgency, that it can't wait. I mean, we don't want to keep kicking the can down the road. I respect what your intentions are, and I certainly respect what the city manager has had to say. And we don't even know if we can be open next month. I mean, it might not even be possible. So I'm just wondering why we couldn't wait. I can't tell you for how long, or if we had to call a special meeting. But, you know, I'm sitting here in the middle of this and leaning in both directions. Certainly, transparency is the most important thing, and I know that we couldn't handle a meeting like this with this type of a setup. I mean, we need everybody we possibly can. But can it wait? That's what I'm asking.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, the city attorney has an idea that might be helpful.
Sure, I sort of heard what the council is saying, and I was thinking it might be helpful for me to suggest a motion. I normally don't do it. I'm not part of the legislative process, but perhaps the motion could be that the topic on legalization of cannabis within the city of Canyon Lake won't be scheduled until the city manager has determined that it is safe to open the council chambers to the public, or until the city council directs him to do the same thing. Does that?
If you
I can't make the motion.
No,
I'm just
I
suggesting
will-
the language.
Then I will echo your motion, because I feel like that is the most responsible thing.
and I do not want us to contribute to a problem, but I know that this is a community discussion point, as it should be. We're not downplaying that. We're just trying to make it available. But I don't want to jeopardize our staff, our citizens, or our council, that we contribute to the spread or contribute to a problem that is identified. And so I have to kind of go on the air of caution. And that would be my view. I'm as intense about this as Jeremy is. The work he's done, the comments he's heard. I've heard very similar ones, both pro and con. And there is a mixed feeling. But I think our job is to sort through that and find out what works best for the community and best for the city and make that decision. But we cannot jeopardize the safety and the health of our community because it is such a hot topic. So I have to go on the air of safety. So I would support Councilman Castile's suggestion that we move in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
I want to say, Councilman Bonner, I'm right there with you 100%, and I'm sorry that the timing is what it is, because it is unfair, it's unjust. You deserve to be a part of that conversation. You do, and I mean that. It's unfair that COVID-19 has impacted this community, and it's unfair that we have to take action like we are tonight, because I am one to agree with the safety of our staff, and I hate saying that because I think you deserve to be part of that conversation. You deserve to be part of that vote. But unfortunately, because of COVID, I have to err on the same caution that Larry and Mayor Pro Tem has mentioned tonight, because the staff is everything to us with all the projects that we're working on. And I think, we have to not take up this topic in the next meeting if it means that we can't have it open to the public. That's just not fair.
I understand.
But I sincerely apologize because you deserve it.
Now, can I ask a question? Do we need a motion to this, or can it just be you make the agenda adjustment based on our discussion?
Again, I would say that for now, what goes on the agendas and the procedures for holding these meetings is the city managers. So he's heard what you've said, he's heard the discussion. You don't have to give him a motion.
I want to continue this, and I want to put this in the record that Casey's made a motion and Larry seconded it, and I want to take a roll call vote if that's okay with the mayor.
And I was going to finish that by saying, but if you want to do a motion, you absolutely can.
We have. Casey has, so. And we got the motion, right?
Yes, I have the motion as the topic of cannabis will not be agendized until the city manager can determine it's safe to open the council chamber unless otherwise directed specifically by the city council,
By a vote of the city council.
by a vote of the city council. And I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Castillo and a second by Councilmember Green. So we'll now do a roll call vote. Councilmember Bonner?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaronkrantz?
Make it unanimous, aye.
Thank you, motion carried.
And I certainly just like one more comment. I appreciate what you have said in the beginning. I certainly understand. We want to keep everybody safe. And I don't think this subject is going to get any cooler, whether we have an empty room or a full room. And I can only applaud you, your efforts, because you've done a great job and a tough job. And it's something that we'll find out in a month or so, I guess, what's going to take place. But for the good of the community, all communities, I mean, from what I read and what I hear, the situation is just getting a lot worse, and I wouldn't be surprised if these other cities don't close down their council meetings so that they're providing a safety for their employees as well. So I thank you for your effort. And with that, I guess we can move on to item number 7.
One more thing, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
In regards to business items, can we please bump up item number 10 in place of can we take up number 10 first? We have a deputy who's in the audience who we've asked to stay due to the discussion of public safety. So would we take that up first, if you don't mind?
We can.
I'm good either way. I'm here.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move up item number 10 prior to taking on item number 7.
Sorry, Mr. Blankenship.
So do we need a roll call vote for that?
Yes. Councilmember Bonner?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaronkrantz?
Yes, aye.
Thank you. Motion carried to move up item 10.
I think you probably have the floor again, Councilmember Smith.
Oh, I'll do a quick introduction here, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you.
All right, so a number of recent events have prompted resident concerns about perceived safety issues in the town center. Councilmember Smith has requested that an item be placed on the agenda tonight to discuss these concerns. I've asked Lieutenant Rails to be here as well and to be prepared to discuss that with us. The item appears for discussion only. No action is recommended at this time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Councilman Smith.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, City Manager. As most of you have known, there's been a lot of discussion in regards to public safety. I want to thank the city staff. I want to thank our Mayor Pro Tem and our mayor for posting our numbers and how safe of a community we are here in Canyon Lake. I think we top one of the safest communities in Riverside County. Some things have happened over the course of the last 30 or 40 days. Some topics on the hotel, other topics with some bike petty theft. Wanted to have a discussion with this council and staff on if there's any measures that we can do, whether it's security cameras, which I know we really can't, or putting together a committee, or anything just to make the business community feel a little bit more safe with some of the things that are happening. Again, I'm not discrediting our sheriff's department because they're doing a phenomenal job, but maybe just thinking outside the box for our business community so they feel even that much more involved, but also that much more comfortable with some of the activities that are taking place in the town center.
Okay, thank you. I know this topic came up several years ago. We had a few break-ins at that time, and some of the merchants were getting a little nervous. Some of them installed burglar alarm systems. Not all of them, and of course it was an expensive item, but as you said, the city can't provide cameras, but the city does certainly patrol the area, and I don't know what the with the COVID, a lot of things have changed, and I'm sure that the merchants are a little anxious about some things, but hopefully we can still maintain this record that we have of being one of the safest cities. And if the sheriff would like to come up and speak to this, we'd be certainly happy to entertain hearing you, or what suggestions you might have.
Well, my feeling is that whenever you have bars, whenever you have hotels, you're going to have disturbances, you're going to have fights, you're going to have issues that happen, and it comes in waves for the most part. Talking to my deputies and kind of looking into it myself, I'm not seeing any big spikes. We've had a few incidents lately, but nothing major to be concerned about. There's no criminal element that's hanging out at the bar or criminal element that's hanging out at the hotel that are specifically doing crime. These are just incidents that happen, and it does come in waves. I don't see the stats being any higher than they've been in the past, to be honest with you, but there has been a few incidents of concern lately. What I can do is we have a deputy and a community service officer that are trained on crime-free business, and they're utilized quite a bit in Lake Elsinore and Wildemar. Businesses or complexes request them to come out and take a look at lighting, take a look at cameras, take a look at security issues. I can have them come out and they can look at everything that you have questions on, and they can write a report and give some ideas of making it
I
safer.
really think that would be helpful. I know that there's a mix of feelings about cameras and who can control the cameras. And some businesses do have cameras now, some don't. Some shut them off, some don't. We've had a couple of things that are brought up, and since I've been on the Public Safety Committee and get the stats, that there's possible prostitution going on at the motel, and some other things were alleged that were, I don't believe those have ever come up in our stats or have come up as a community problem or a local issue, but yet whether these are being manufactured for headline purposes or just there's a fact to it. I just need the community to know what you found and what our stats show and what we've experienced is really what we're trying to do. We're giving the community the best information we can that's provided to us based on these monthly reports, daily activities. I'm sure if we got a spike, you'd be the first to tell the city manager, and we would be able to tell our constituents. So what I'm trying to convey is that we're trying to stay on top of all of our issues within the community. But have you experienced that or heard that since you guys have been handling it?
Prostitution, no.
Okay.
Quite a few hotels do throughout the county.
Yes.
And we're usually on top of those and know where they're at. We have an anti-human trafficking task force that goes out and does a lot of prostitution things around the county. I could get with them and see, because I haven't heard of that.
Would you,
being a problem in
because it
Canada.
would be another layer of stats that shows that we're digging deeper than
Yeah.
just doing a cursory look and catch and that kind of stuff. But I don't believe the allegations are founded. I believe that they have been maybe made up or whatever, but I want to make sure that when I give that back to the people, that we've done what we can do to determine that this is not really true. And yes, it can happen in other places, and I'm not saying it can't happen over there, but to record, to date, doesn't seem that it is happening here.
No, I pulled all calls for service going back to January, and there's been 82 calls for service there. A lot of those are generated from our deputies that are writing tickets, that are arresting subjects for warrants, writing parking citations. We have responded to a few batteries there. Most of what we responded to that were calls for service were disturbances, which is usually domestic, that type of thing. But I don't have any calls out of all those calls for service this January that are related to prostitution.
Thank you.
So nothing's showing here. That doesn't mean it's not
Okay,
occurring.
and if I could just request that if you do run that report and send it to the manager so that he can disseminate it to us or have a discussion with us. But it is something that we try to stay on top of for our community, and definitely it's a big concern of ours and a concern, I'm sure, of yours. And we just want to, to give accurate information.
Since we've taken over and I've spoken to Paris, we have not had any complaints.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you so much first for running that stat. It's been very, it's been a conversation, in the community the last couple of weeks. So thank you so much for doing that. Wanted to run a program by you. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not with the city of Marietta, but what they've done with their community is, as you know, a lot of residents have rings. A lot of residents have, cameras on their property. So they actually put together a program that allows residents to enroll with the city in case there's an emergency or crime. They have easy access to call them, text them, and say, hey, is it okay if we get the feed that was done? There was an accident in front of your home. Has the sheriff's department looked in or done anything like that, creatively speaking? Canyon Lake is probably the most prime location for that because it's so close, and everyone, at least for me, door knocking the last couple of weeks, has rings on their homes. But is there any conversation like that happening in the sheriff's department?
I was involved in something similar a few years back with another city, and it was called Deputize Your Cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And it was mostly related to businesses, but not residences. But no program that I know of right now, but I could definitely contest. Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, if you don't mind, it was floated to us, and I looked into it, and I called one of my colleagues over in Marietta, and it's just another avenue, that people feel more comfortable. It shows the city's being responsive, and I think for our little town center, something along those lines, and obviously even more so behind the gates, but in our town center, that would be something that I'm sure the businesses would love.
Yeah, the ring cameras have been a great tool.
Oh, yeah.
That we utilize.
Oh, yeah.
quite a bit now.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so many things that go on that would be just bypassed that they're being caught.
Yes.
So, great.
I agree.
I can tell you years ago, what you're talking about now did take place on a few occasions over there. Right now, I think the public has just been a little presumptuous, believing things that are going on that are not taking place there. And I know that you, the sheriff's department, excuse me, sorry, patrols that parking lot, and checks license plates.
Yes.
Something went down wrong. I'm sorry.
That's what most of our stats are related to, is our deputies out there being proactive, writing tickets, arresting persons with warrants, those types of things.
Well, like I say, there may be an incident or two, but I think things have calmed down substantially over the years. And the management has changed a couple of times, and there's been improvements made to that motel. So certainly, we know you're keeping your eye on it, and we appreciate that. And I'm not sure what assurance we can give the rest of the people in the town center.
I can definitely look further into it with the hotel, and I can know pretty quickly.
Well, as Councilman Green said, if there's any stats that we don't know about, we certainly would like to hear about those as well.
He has one.
But thank you for what you do.
I also want to add that if you go on the Riverside Sheriff's Department website and type in crime reports, it will direct you to a link to City Protect, which is crime mapping software. You can type in the address of the town center and see exactly what is going on. I did that for the last 6 months and really saw nothing at all related to the hotel.
No spikes.
So.
No spikes, yep.
Residents can also go there and verify that for themselves.
Yeah.
I'm told that software is regularly updated.
Definitely. And with the small amount of hotels you have and bars and that type of thing, just us putting a little more time into it, making a few little changes, I don't think it'll be a problem.
I love it.
Any further discussion?
No, I just want to thank the Sheriff's Department, and I wanted to say that since you've taken over, not any disparity on the parish, it seems like we see your deputy a lot more in this field,
Yes.
and that presence is well noted, and thank you.
Well, we're keeping on them and trying to.
We appreciate
make sure
it.
they're where it's supposed to be, so.
We appreciate it.
Thank
Yes, we
you.
do.
Thanks for staying after, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go back to item 7 and. thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, if I may, I do have one public comment on item 10 that I'd like to read into the record.
Not yet, Bill.
Sorry, Bill.
Stick around, Bill.
Just hang out for a second, I'm sorry. It's a short comment. It's from Brian Howard, and the comment says, I have noticed many drug deals happening in the parking lot over the years. Also, it's a known fact that the motel in the complex is a prostitution spot. Very sad, but something needs to happen to make it a better place to live. That's all we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna try this again.
Mr. Mayor, can I call for a recess? No, Bill, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It's okay, I'll go home.
Do you remember what you're here for, Mr. Blankenship?
I think so.
Well, then why don't you come up and present it to us, please?
Take my mask off. If I don't, my glasses will fog up. I remember why I'm here.
Good.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. I'd like to thank the entire city council and the city's professional staff for creating a positive and productive partnership. We've been working together for just over a year now, and I'm very pleased with the progress. We have pursued many issues over the past year, and tonight I'll highlight 6 of them that we can discuss in greater detail. Starting with the unique zip code for the city. Seems like it should be an easy request through the congressman's office. Well, it used to be when I used to work in Congress, but apparently it's not. Today, the zip code issue seems nearly impossible to achieve short of federal legislation. A neighboring city with over 50,000 residents have been working with the Congressman Calvert for over 6 years, and it's now taking the introduction of legislation to hopefully achieve the goal. It appears the issue has bogged down by the politics of labor within the Postal Service and convincing 435 members of the House as to why this is a good use of Congress's time. We will monitor their success and advocate to be part of the next bill. So that's one of the issues we've been working on. PILT, which stands for Payment in Lieu of Taxes. The federal government provides over $500 million in PILT funds for counties that have large areas of federal land within their boundaries. I believe that the city should receive a portion of these dollars. The county of Riverside has 2,347,692 federal acres, and they received last year $532,116, of which, of those acres, of those 2 million acres, 1,523,160,000 acres are BLM acres. You have 800 acres. I contacted the county on your behalf and regarding the PILT distribution and posed a question to them about us receiving a portion of those dollars. Their initial response was, if you divide the number of federal acres in the county by the acres within our city boundaries, and then divide that percentage by the total amount of PILT dollars the county received in 2019, we would receive $1,203. Great. It is my belief that we should go back to the supervisor with a formal request to look at this matter in a different way. Maybe it would be helpful if one of our council members could join us in this effort. So that's where I think we need to go with PILT. The other issue that I've brought, and we've talked from the very beginning, is the BLM transfer of ownership on the 2 parcels that equal 800 acres. The BLM has recently reevaluated their list of projects awaiting administrative processing, and we have now fallen to number 23, that's the bad news, on the priority list. The priority list is approximately 12 federal energy projects and 1 legislative mandated project that have either administrative or legislative priority status. Legislative status means a member of Congress introduced a bill, and that actually put a deadline on BLM to actually process that project. And so all these are now ahead, and they have been ahead of us. And then there's, of course, about another 11
or 10 that are still ahead of us. So I'm of the mind that we need to seek a legislative solution to expedite our request for a transfer of ownership. This idea has now been discussed with the congressman, his chief of staff, and their senior policy advisors. A strategy has been developed, and we're moving forward with that strategy. In addition to that, since the beginning, we've been talking about bringing forward a development partner who could work with us. The city manager and I have had multiple meetings with a potential development partner, looking at the options in the city to create additional housing and retail opportunities. We have met with the two owners of a large private builder. The builder has experience with housing developments, golf course repurposing, and mixed-use retail developments. The meetings have consisted of multiple meetings with their development team, a complete tour of the city, and I mean complete, even on the lake, for each owner and each owner of the company, and a favorable meeting with the city's Property Owners Association. As part of their performing evaluation, and that's where they are right now, they are also working on a potential project that would include Jump Lagoon. As part of their performance process, they are also reaching out to a nearby landowner whose property could be part of a mitigation trade for the BLM Jump Lagoon property, which I think is good news. Based on recent conversations with the builder partner, they are very deep in their performer process, and I've been talking to them on a weekly basis. In addition to that, the city, I think, made a great purchase at 31542 Railroad Canyon Road, and we've been working with AMR as a possible tenant for Suite 1. The city manager and I took their key staff and took them on a tour of the building. We discussed their needs and the tenant improvements that they would need. And I have now met with two contractors who are preparing proposals for the TI work for that suite. I've also been working with qualified contractors who meet the municipal requirements that are set by the state of California. I would say that's probably our biggest hurdle. The overall scope of work in the new building consists of a new roof, HVAC units. City recently replaced 2 of those because they broke. Cement and drainage issues, electrical, ADA accessibility, and addressing other building code issues, and just improving the overall appearance of the building. My goal is to bring 31542 Railroad Canyon Road up to the city standard. In this effort, I've met with 4 cement contractors, 5 roofers, and 2 of the contractors hold an A and B license. And both those contractors have taken a full tour with me in every suite, and they're doing a complete analysis on what we need to do to get that project up to what I would call our city standard. In addition to that, in the work over there, had a regular presence with our tenants, and lately I've been over there almost every week because I'm bringing contractors too, so I've been visiting with the pastor and some of our other tenants. In addition to that, I've recently met with the Regional Conservation Authority to discuss a myriad of issues, including the possible habitat constraints in the unincorporated areas outside the city boundaries that could affect us. And we're continuing to look at opportunities for possible land that would enhance the city's ability to create revenue opportunities. So that's my report for the evening. I'd be more than happy to take any questions. Again, I very much appreciate the support that I've had from the entire team and from you as a council, and I thank you for the opportunity to work with you on these projects and more in the future.
A question?
Thanks for being patient, Bill.
No, that's good.
You said you needed a council member to sit with you guys for that. I'd be interested in that.
Okay, we will take you up on that. I think we need to do that.
I am on RCA and have a fairly good relationship with.
Well, we would be meeting with Supervisor Jeffries.
Perfect.
To rerun that issue, so to speak, at the flagpole.
There you go. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions?
City Council have any questions?
Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you. I know your efforts have been tremendous.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you going to bat on the zip code issue, even though I know that
We're not
was
done.
an
We're not
uphill
done.
battle. And that's just a point of pride for Canyon Lake, you know.
It absolutely makes sense. And like I said, back in the days when I worked in Congress, these were very routine. But the Postal Service has gotten bogged down in union issues. and it's really taking legislative action. And when I brought this up to the congressman's office, I really got an earful. But we also brought it up to the congressman when we had our annual meeting with him, and I think we also got another earful. But he wasn't deterred from wanting to do that. I think where they are is they want to push the Eastvale issue through, because that issue's really been an issue over there since their incorporation.
Yeah.
And they're a much larger city.
Yeah.
But when he'll introduce that legislation, this isn't just a Southern California problem, this is a nationwide problem.
Right.
So when he introduces that one for that city, others will jump on. And once we get that through, I think there'll be another opportunity to go at it.
Thank you.
Okay?
I also just wanted to comment that I'm very proud of the economic development efforts that this council has undertaken by way of hiring Mr. Blankenship. It's been night and day in terms of opportunities and ability to actually potentially close
I think creativity
on those.
is the good word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, thank you for
Well,
all
you
your
have
time.
you have a great team, and I very much like working with them, and it's been a good opportunity for me as well, and thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, can you
Thank you.
stick around for a couple of hours? We've got a few other things we wanted to ask you.
Sure, you want to go to like item 20?
Stick,
Just
we
keep adding
got, we
agenda
got, we
items?
got vector control coming, so.
Are
Mr.
you sure you
Mayor,
didn't want me to wait for vector control?
No,
All right.
it'll be late enough.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just,
Any public comments on this issue? Thank
Oh,
you. Yes,
just
excuse
city
me, what?
manager comment.
I just wanted to, one brief thing, kind of echoing what Mayor Pro Tem Castillo said. I really appreciate the council providing the resource by way of the contract with Bill Blankenship. As you heard, we are doing a lot with economic development, and we run lean here. We don't have a lot of staff, so the progress we have made in the past year has been tremendous and would not have been possible if we had to do it all completely in-house. And Bill has been phenomenal and is just it's been seamless. He's part of the team, and really appreciate the work that Bill's doing. And I think we're gonna do some great things for the city here in the next few months as well. So.
Well, thank you. I think the whole council agrees with that statement. Thanks again, Bill. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 8. This is a joint powers agreement with Menifee. We have a staff presentation by Mr. Ferrari, I believe.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm presenting here tonight the approval of the amended and restated joint powers agreement to include Menifee and the Southwest Communities Financing Authority. Just some background on the SCFA. They were formed in November 2004 as a joint powers authority between the cities of Canyon Lake, Lake Elsinore, Marietta, and Temecula, as well as the county of Riverside, for the purposes of building an animal shelter here in Southwest Riverside County. In October of 2010, the city of Wildomar was added to a member of this JPA, and essentially the goal of the JPA and the SCFA was to build this animal shelter and then provide the funding and operations needed for Animal Friends of the Valley to utilize it properly and to be able to store any stray animals and provide for adoptions and other animal-related issues there at the animal shelter. So recently, the city of Menifee has sought interest in joining the JPA to be a member of the SCFA to contribute to funding for the animal shelter. They currently utilize AFV for their animal control services, and AFV utilizes the animal shelter, so they want to join in on that to help provide for those costs. So the good news about this is it was approved by the board of SCFA last Thursday, and the great news is that with Menifee joining, our payments to the JPA will decrease this year, and the increases will be blunted year over year. So for this year, our decrease to the debt service payment is going to be approximately $5,981. So that is savings that will be afforded to the city. And then for the remaining 8 months of the year, the city is going to be saving $796 each month on operations costs that we pay for the operation and management of the shelter, and that's a total of about $6,368 for the remaining 8 months of the fiscal year. And so these aren't the biggest savings these aren't the biggest savings ever that the city's ever had, but these are still savings that we can be proud of and that the rest of the cities can be proud of. And Menifee joining in is going to put SCFA on a nice and sustainable path. Having a large partner like Menifee join in will be great. In terms of our share, in the long term, it brings it down a bit. I believe without Menifee, 4.4 of the animals at AFV are from Canyon Lake, and that determines our share of the costs. I believe with Menifee joining, that brings them down to about 3.5. So it still is a fairly significant difference for us. And in the long term, having Menifee as a partner is going to help blunt those cost increases that are predominantly due to rising labor wages, or rising labor costs, predominantly in the minimum wage. And with that, staff does recommend that the City Council approve this amended agreement that would allow Menifee to join the SCFA. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council? No. Any public comments on this item?
No comments.
No comments? Then I'll certainly entertain a motion and a second.
Motion.
To approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We need a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaronkranz?
Aye.
Motion carried to approve the agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're moving on to our last item. And I believe Mr. Borges is going to give us a presentation.
Saving the best for last. Okay. Have you guys heard of CBG? Okay. I'm going to take this off. Okay.
Are you a stand-up comic?
I was before.
Okay, I thought so.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Tonight's recommendation, City Council, is to direct city staff to approve fiscal year 2021-2022 CDBG projects and allocations towards public service agencies with an estimated allocation of $27,000. As you know, our annual allocation participation with CDBG and the Riverside County Economic Development Agency, we get an allocation of this grant funding that's used towards programs to benefit low-income individuals in the cities. We have always used it to provide public service funds for agencies such as HOPE. Actually, HOPE has probably been one of the only ones that really has qualified for it before in the past. And most recently, too, some of these funds have been used towards ADA accessibility projects. If City Council decides to proceed with staff's recommendation, staff will put together a deadline for nonprofit agencies to submit their applications to the city for Monday, November 16th. It gives them the 30 days requirements that in order to do that. Staff will also set a public hearing at the December 2nd City Council meeting for consideration and approval of funding allocations. So just like every year before, we wait for the applications to come in. We review them between staff and county to determine whether or not they meet the qualifications for CDBG. And that's for the public service portion of it. At that time, City Council could then determine the award amount for each qualification application that we do receive in case there are additional applications that come into play aside from HOPE. Council has that opportunity to do so, so long that they meet all CDBG requirements. So again, staff recommendation is to move forward with the approving the projects and allocations towards public service agencies with that estimated allocation of $27,000. If approved, 15% of that allocation roughly comes out to $4,050 towards public service agencies, and the rest of the remaining amount of $22,950 would be used for the ADA accessibility project for City Hall. And I say City Hall because, as you know, the previous allocations that we've recently moved over have been for the new building. So we're hoping to still address some of the ADA issues here that we've identified in the previously reports for City Hall.
Okay.
Questions?
You're talking about this building now?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
Good job, Mike.
Thank you.
Any public comments?
No public comments.
Okay. Well, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion. Business
Second.
item number 9, CDBG. I make all of them, so for CDBG. Right, Mike, you and I.
Wait a minute. No, I was thinking of something else.
Do we have a second?
That's CBD, Larry.
We have a
This is
motion and a second.
CDBG.
Was it a second by Councilmember Green or Mayor? Pro Tem? Okay,
Councilmember Castillo.
Sorry.
it's okay.
Once again, we need a roll call vote.
Councilmember Bonner.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo.
Aye.
Councilmember Green.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Aaronkranz.
Aye.
Motion carried to approve item number 9.
Okay, we're getting close to the finale. I would like to, just before the city manager comments, if I may ask perhaps our city clerk. Thank you, guys. Oh. There seems to be some confusion, or I get questions about the voting process this year, and perhaps you could clear the air a little bit about why there aren't any polls to go vote at and what have you?
Absolutely.
If you would, thank you.
So as, you know, we've discussed, there's a lot of things that have changed because of COVID-19. The election is one of those things that has changed. Typically, the city of Canyon Lake has a polling location here inside this council chamber. Unfortunately, we are so close to the public, and so it's just not possible for us to have that polling location here for the 2020 election. We did work with the POA, and the POA has been very kind. They've given us the use of the Magnolia Room at the Country Club. So there will be a voting assistance center. It's going to be manned by the county. It's going to be open Saturday, Sunday, Monday before the election. So Saturday, October 31st through November 2nd from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Anybody can come in and vote there. And it's going to be open on Election Day, November 3rd from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. In addition, we do still have a ballot box located at City Hall. Although our doors are closed to the public can call our number, let somebody know that they're outside, and somebody will come to the door, open the door, and residents can place their ballots inside the box, which is secure. The County of Riverside comes once a week to empty the box, and they take them directly back to the registrar's office. We're also encouraging the public to vote by mail. It's the fastest, it's the easiest way to do it. The ballots are already pre-postage, they have pre-postage on them, prepaid. They offer something this year where you can track your ballot as well, so it's very, very easy to send it off by mail as well.
Now,
There's
when you referenced the Magnolia Room, you said anybody can come there and vote. Do you want to clear that up as to what?
any registered voter in Riverside County can come to the Magnolia Room to vote.
To deliver their ballot?
To vote in person, yes, correct. So voting in person, they are going to have replacement ballots, accessible voting machines, and they'll have people there that will be answering questions and just kind of assisting. The county is asking, ideally that, you try to vote by mail, but if you do feel the need to vote in person, they will be having COVID-19, they're not going to be checking for COVID-19, but you have to adhere to social distancing. So wear a face covering, they're going to have the sanitation stations, you have to stay 6 feet apart, and they're also asking for people to bring their own ballpoint pens. I'm sure they'll be providing some as well, but anything we can do to limit the amount of, things that are being touched. So We will have voting in person. Again, we have assistance from the POA by using the Magnolia Room, but I do want to clarify with the residents that the City of Canyon Lake is the elections official. So if residents do have questions about the election, they should be contacting the city and not the POA.
Good. Thank you for that explanation.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, now we can move on to city manager's comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has been an incredibly busy month since our last meeting. We are deep into our analysis of the feasibility of potentially starting a Canyon Lake Fire Department. As you remember, in July, the ESCI study was complete and presented to the council. Since that time, we've been busy tracking down additional information that was needed. We've had very productive meetings with the county supervisor's office, the county executive office, and with our new county fire chief, Bill Weiser. Those have all been very positive meetings, and we've been able to collect almost all of the information we need from the county. We do have a meeting on Tuesday of next week with REMSA, which is the county organization that oversees EMS, and would be overseeing a city-run EMS effort. We have a fire ad hoc committee scheduled to meet on Wednesday of next week. And our plan is to bring the item to the city council on November 4th. Just a reminder that if we're going to not renew our agreement with the county, or if we're going to make changes to our agreement with the county for fire services, we have to inform them of that by November 30th. Should the council decide on November 4th to proceed with starting a city fire department, you'll likely see a recommendation at the time that we make a request of the county to extend for a certain period of time, but not an entire 12-month period. The assumption is that it will take us approximately 12 months to get a fire department put together. We don't need a whole nother July 1st to June 30th with the county, but we might need July 1st to December. So we'll talk about that at the next meeting. We've been busy rolling out a number of new programs, including the EMS subscription program, which I would say has been a big success so far. What we've been working on most recently is the response fee invoicing process. We worked with County Fire to gain access to their system, which tracks all of the EMS calls that they respond to. Our city accountant now has access to that program. We've been working with Data Ticket, who is our vendor, who will be actually doing the invoicing and working out some of the details there. The goal is to send out the first round of invoices this month, hopefully within the next 2 weeks. And that will include the months of July, August, and September. And then thereafter, invoices will go out on a monthly basis. The residential rental registration program is moving along nicely. We have so far 215 rental properties that have registered, 10 just within the last week. Notices, you may recall, were originally sent out in February. Final notices were sent out last week to properties without homeowners exemptions filed with the county. That generated quite a few calls and questions, as I'm sure you're aware. The vast majority of people, once it was explained to them, were fine with it, and quite a few people were not aware of homeowners exemptions and are going to contact the county to file and save a little bit of money on their property taxes. Citations will start being issued beginning October 15th of this month for those who are renting out homes and are not registered. A little bit of sad news with the WRCOG Fellowship Program. We had been awarded a fellow, and that fellow was interviewed, and we really liked her, and then she made the decision to back out of the program, stating COVID-19 concerns. And then WRCOG found someone else for us, and we interviewed that person and really liked her as well. And then the same exact thing happened. So we will not be awarded the WRCOG fellow this year, although we have been promised that we'll get another opportunity next year. Staff has had some discussions about whether or not it might make sense to do a city fellowship program this year instead. We have the funding approved for it. So it might be a condensed time frame. We might start in January and go through June, but it's something we're talking about currently. We talked quite a bit about coronavirus, so I'll keep this update short. City Hall remains closed to the public at this time, but all city services are still being provided. All staff are reporting to work as they have since the beginning of this. So far, staff is staying healthy. We've had no confirmed cases of COVID-19 amongst the staff. Just want to remind everyone in the community that all the services are still available to you. You can access them by calling, emailing, or going to the city website. The building department is open and operating. In fact, activity has been very healthy. We've had a lot of activity through the building department. Inspections are being conducted on site and virtually when that's feasible. Business licensing, just a reminder that the 50% discount on the business license portion of the residential rental registration program was extended through the end of this year for businesses that can show a legitimate COVID-19 related hardship. Also, separately, for businesses in the city, the business license renewal fees for 2021 can be waived in their entirety for businesses that can show a legitimate COVID-19 related hardship. Info on COVID-19 relief programs and fee waiver application forms can be found on the city's website. And that is all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Move on to council member reports, starting with council member Bonner.
We had an RCTC meeting in September, and we'll have one in October 14th. The RC Railroad Canyon Road interchange downstairs and on 15 in Lake Elsinore is changing by the hours. So please be very careful when you go through that and respect the driving, the speeding, and just safety. It's going to be, because it's going to go for at least another year. So they're making a lot of progress. They're going pretty fast, and I'm really proud of the job they're doing. We didn't agree on the roundtable, right? On Monday?
Yes, we did. So just a reminder that Monday of next week is Columbus Day. So city offices will be closed Monday, but we did, staff did reach out to the country club. The country club is closed, as is the golf course, for reseating. But we reached out to the Urban, but they already had a large group planned. And so I think we're going to end up at VIP's Cafe on Tuesday.
I'm sorry?
We're going to end up at VIP's Cafe on Tuesday for the roundtable. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And last, I would ask my colleagues to try to keep the reports within 3 minutes. All four, okay? Because it went way long in last time, and all respect to people who are watching the meeting. It's important to keep it down to a reasonable period of time. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo.
Thank you. I will speak quickly. I want to thank city staff, especially Mike Borja and city manager Mann. I had multiple discussions with residents of the Fairway Estates on traffic issues relating to the entryway on Skylink, as well as the turn lanes that, the right-hand turn lane as a result of coming out of the Canyon Lake Fitness Center. I brought those concerns to to staff, and they immediately were responsive. I was very pleased to find that they were able to secure our Tri-Lakes consultant, Mr. Brophy, to come out and do a traffic assessment. We're awaiting the results of that assessment, is what my understanding is. And I've been able to kind of contact the parties who were very concerned. And so hopefully the residents of Canyon Lake are aware that, we're hearing what you are saying, and as a result, we are working on the issues. It may be that we have to work jointly with the POA, but we're still waiting for information from the traffic consultant. I do believe that there's a potential for a LEJWA meeting on the 15th. If that's the case, I might have to tap into my alternate, because that is the day we are also having the Veterans Committee event. I personally am super excited about our Veterans Day program for this year, which will be on Veterans Day, which is a Wednesday. Because of COVID, we've had to adjust and become creative, and I think our program this year will definitely honor those from the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, as well as all the branches of the military, and I'm very, very excited about what staff has in store. That meeting will be done via Zoom. It should be a quick meeting because I know that's also the day of the debate, the next presidential debate, but it will be an update. So if you are on the committee, please respond to the emails that have been sent out by Madam City Clerk. Three more things I wanted to mention. Staff is great at City Hall and is asking for Halloween pics, photos of your house or your dog or your children. And if you have them, much like how we did the patriotic pets, please send those to media@canyonlakeca.gov. I wanted to mention that Helping Hands is also doing their Socktoberfest, which procures socks for low-income seniors in the area. So if you have any interest, please go to their website and get more information on that. And then I wanted to thank the residents of Canyon Lake. We asked for the participation from our Lake Elsinore deputies in Operation Juice Box. Operation Juice Box gives juice boxes and crayons, etc., to deputies to pass out to children that they meet on patrol to foster important positive relationships with law enforcement and youth. Our Canyon Lake deputy sure did go out and make those contacts, and I received a lot of positive feedback, so much so that residents in the community decided to start a juice box drive. There are 3 locations in Canyon Lake where you can drop off juice boxes. If you have questions, you can go to my Mayor Pro Tem Facebook page and find the locations of those juice box drop locations, but wow, my heart was really full from seeing that. And then one more thing. I'm sure the community is aware of the Murrieta PD officer who was involved in the very bad traffic collision as a result of a vehicle pursuit. Officer Matt Gazzino grew up in Canyon Lake. He worked at the pro shop at the golf course. And so regardless of what department he works for, he is a homegrown Canyon Lake hero. There is a fundraiser going on opening weekend back from the reseeding of the golf course. So the 7th and 8th of November, if you go and play golf at the Canyon Lake Golf Course, they are willing to take donations for the family. 100% of the donations will go to the family. He is pretty busted up in terms of broken bones and has a very long recovery ahead of him. His parents still live in Canyon Lake, and so if you have it in your heart to contribute, I would ask that you do so. And that's what I wanted to say today. I hope that was 3 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember
Just
Green.
under the window.
I was talking fast.
Hey, Casey, on the officers' injuries, if they're not playing golf, they can still go by and make a donation, correct?
Yes, absolutely. There's
Okay,
a juice-
just to make that clear, you don't have to play golf, but you can make a donation. And please, it's a worthwhile, obviously, he's got some very serious injuries and he's got a long recovery.
There is, just so you know, there is a GoFundMe that has been established by the Murrieta Police Officers Association. That link is also posted on Facebook. But yes, the golf course is willing to take donations for his family. If you don't mind, I would also like to say today, when I showed up at City Hall, in my mailbox were gift cards to Stater Brothers and a whole year's worth of free dog food for the family from a Canyon Laker.
Perfect.
Just out of their heart. So, you know, we have a great community. It really shows when people go through something hard.
Thank you. Well, it's been a busy month. Obviously, I hope some of you have caught some of the video actions, and thank you to Councilman Smith for being one of the hosts. We've had an active month at RCA, although it's been done by Zoom. The Executive Committee has met at least twice, and we have are in the process of working with RCTC on management agencies change. And right now, RCTC is doing its due diligence to do exploration of whether a merger can take place. To date, we have found no major issues that cannot allow that to occur. We have an executive board meeting as well as the RCTC in October. We will do the final briefings for each of the executive committees, and we will come out of the executive committees with a recommendation to go to the full committees, which is that will occur in November with the ratification. If both committees ratify it, then the merger will take place. And the merger will take some time to go. Crossover of staff, we've got at least a $1 million obligation, 1-point-something million for our PERS obligation, plus some other stuff. We want it transparent. RCTC is the best agency. Duplication of effort will be decreased, a better focus in both at the local, state, and federal level for our mission for RCA. RCA has added 253 additional acres as of last month. Our MSHCP, wow, that's a mouthful. Fee collection for August was down. There is a building issues right now, even though there's a lot going on. But we're trying to do some streamlining with BIA and some other things as far as getting the numbers down so we can do a 10-year projection and the builders can project out, pay up front, and they're not penalized. So we're working with a lot of fluid things in the community. With the mission forward is it'll take probably 3 years for everything to gel in RCA and RCTC. Both are in compliance with environmental issues and the habitat. We both have very similar goals in that area, so it's a good match. Also, once RCA has acquired all the acreage we need for our management, which is going to be in the next several years, we will then revert into a management maintenance program of all the properties. And that includes fire prevention, weed abatement, brush control, habitat management, and all the things that we're charged with to make sure that our future and our future species have a place to go. And that's all I've got. I hope I made the 3 minutes.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I get don't shoot the messenger on this one. I get to serve on SCAG Transportation, so we have a lot of discussions about transportation issues, obviously. And the new thing that Newsom did, as most of you heard, was in 2035, go all electric. So we got that coming. So be prepared. You know, there's going to be some very interesting, heated conversations in the next few years in regards to our transportation throughout California. I serve on RTA, Riverside Transportation Agency, and ridership is up. And hats off to those bus drivers. They're impacted by COVID-19 every single day, and they continue to show up for work. And it's just impressive to see they're really the hub of a big part of the community that has to be, taken into, work. I mean, a lot of folks use the bus regularly, especially in the city of Riverside. Want to talk a little bit about, we had an incident, obviously, just outside the city. My condolences go out to the family that lost a loved one. Hate hearing those things, and I just want to say, our prayers and thoughts go to that family. It's so crucial. It's just tough to have to go through that, especially with the year that we've had. Public safety, incredible job locally here in Canyon Lake. It's just amazing to see our numbers continue to improve, and I think the transition over to Lake Elsinore Station, like Councilman Green has mentioned, it's just been night and day. It's incredible to see our deputies out regularly. The last thing I want to say is Canyon Lake once again surprises me. I've taken it upon myself the last couple of weeks to go door to door and communicate with the residents, and I haven't had a single person yell at me. It's been absolutely amazing. People are so engaged and want to hear more information if we just give them the opportunity to do so. And I want to note for the record, I'm done, Mr. Bonner. It's 1 minute and 52 seconds. So I challenge the mayor to see if he can beat that.
You know better than to do that.
I'm just saying.
I've got 14 pages of reports here.
I gotta go pee, man.
I don't think any of us have mentioned the 9/11 tribute, have we? What a great night that was. Thank you and all of the other community members. That, if anybody didn't see it, they missed something that was really, really spectacular. I certainly hope we can do the same thing year after year. It was great, so thank you again. Let's see, I attended the Student of the Month this year virtually, and a little more difficult, that particular luncheon, than some of the other meetings that I had to go to. But I was able to make an announcement to the group, which I'm not sure how we've decided what we're going to do, but the city of Canyon Lake, instead of giving out gift cards and certificates and things of this nature, we're going to do a $1,500 a year scholarship program. I think Anna is working on the details, so I couldn't announce as to how it's going to be awarded. But that's very exciting, and it's really great of the city to do that. So I thank the city for that. Of course, I attended the city golf tournament. I didn't play, but I made sure that our team stayed honest. I drove around the course with them all day long and lent them an eraser when necessary. But for those of you who don't know or didn't gather, we won the championship. And once again, as I say, there was a mix-up, but the trophy will be here soon. WRCOG, well, one of the items that I have, I believe, I have to take all my time. The 2020 census, 98.7% of households have been counted. So we're getting pretty close to 100%, hopefully. So I'm sure thank everybody that's participated in that particular thing. WRCOG, Dr. White, who's the superintendent of education, is retiring. She's going to be working for some nonprofit organizations. But she said that the Riverside County Office of Education is their campaign is all for one, and they're providing all the needed equipment to every student by November 1st so they can stay connected to today's virtual environment, and I think that's pretty great. Also, so there's been some tough progress. There was an agreement with the city of Temecula for the right-of-way phase of the French Valley Parkway, Jefferson Avenue to Yanez Road, and that was $1,500,000 was awarded for that. Agreement with San Jacinto, the Project Advancement Environmental Project, the right-of-way. My printer wasn't working too well. Between Gilman Springs and Quant Road, and that was in the amount of $1,138,000. Agreement with the County of Riverside for the project and advancement construction phases of Hamner Avenue Bridge over the Santa Ana River project in the amount of $4,750,000. There's also some talk about the effects of the COVID. New housing is probably going to be create a whole new industry. Something's a little too late for me as an air conditioning contractor. but new homes soon will probably be required to have a positive and negative type of ventilation, which I'm not sure when that's going to start, but it's an interesting concept as far as evacuating air to the outside and not recirculating air throughout the entire house. It's going to be another added expense to housing, and I'm not sure just when that's going to be put in place, but they're talking about it now. Also, the survey was taken, and 31% of people prefer to work 2 to 3 days at home. And of course, online business is destroying businesses everywhere right now, which they say is an opportunity with Riverside prices being cheaper for office space. For those that are going to have office buildings, Riverside is going to be an attractive place to move to, so hopefully that'll be a shot or an infusion of good luck for Riverside. And in case you were wondering, I've just, effective next month, I'm the new chairman of the Vector Committee, so I will have a lot longer reports to give than than I have right now. Donna Ritchie had called me today because people are having some problems with mosquitoes. And apparently there is a new species of mosquitoes that are out right now here in Canyon Hills specifically. And the spraying material that the Vector is using is not working. So hopefully they're going to come up with something that will work, but Donna's going to post it on her page and give information to where people can get a hold of Vector, in which I've given a lot of people that information as well. But there's a new repellent, supposedly. It smells like grapefruit. It's a new type of repellent. It's going to be making its way into drugstores, and it smells like grapefruit. The EPA announced that it had approved this new ingredient called Nootkatone that repels and kills mosquitoes and ticks. The naturally occurring ingredient, which is responsible for the characteristic scent of grapefruit, was discovered by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and developed it into an insecticide. And once again, as I say, these information is always available. I'm trying to keep my time down per the request of Councilmember Bonner. So I'll skip over some of that. But there's now also a dangerous new mosquito, and I don't know if that's the one that's here, but it has a taste for human blood, which apparently everybody always thought that they did. But this mosquito transmits dangerous viruses like dengue and Zika, and seems to have developed a taste for human blood because of the way that people store water. Mosquitoes need for laying eggs in hot, dry climates. And you've all heard me say before how it is not to have any standing water any place, in anything, in a bottle cap. And there's several pages here, and I know that it's getting late, and I know that we've all missed the debate already, so if you've taped it, I'm sure you'll be able to see it. I think that is probably enough of my stuff. Although I will say, every student of the month luncheon, I leave them with a little quip of some kind or another, and I have a book full of things that I try to pass on to the students. This one was quite short. It says, "Mistakes are lessons of wisdom." And with that, I'm concluding my report for tonight. So, our next regular scheduled meeting is on Wednesday, November the 4th, 5 o'clock for closed session, 6:30 for open session. And if there's nothing further to discuss, we're adjourned at 9:06. Thank you all for staying and participating.